Hello there, welcome to another episode. Today I'm going to look at Kurosawa films. I mean, the Kurosawa films I have in Blu-ray, which is the Samurai Collection, Rashomon, Kagemusha, which I've just mispronounced, and Ran. I'm just showing you the box set so you know where you can get them. What I'm talking about. If you're in Britain, they're easy to find. BFI has Rashomon Samurai Collection. Fox has Kagemusha, and Studio Canal has Ran. And Ran's a 4K restoration, so it's put a lot of time into this. But all of them look gorgeous. All of the films look great. Now I'll start with the Samurai Collection. This collection is 5 films, which is Seven Samurai, Theatre of Blood, Hidden Fortress, Yojimbo, and Sanjuro. I'll start with Yojimbo and Sanjuro because they're parts 1 and 2. Of basically, Yojimbo is the first film, and then the sequel, Sanjuro, has the same character but it's a different plot. Yojimbo, anyone who's seen A Fistful of Dollars will know the basic story of Yojimbo. Yojimbo is a guy who goes into a town there's a civil war in this town, 2 different crime families. Yojimbo starts playing them against each other. So the plot's the same, there's a lot of plot beats. Like you see Jimbo's actually a lot softer than he lets on. He does have some honour. He tries to protect the family. He gets in trouble for it. He rises from injury and destroys his enemies. Basic stuff you saw in Fistful of Dollars 2. This is the first one. There's a lot of differences though. It's all about tone. This is a black and white film. And even though the characters are doing the same things, the characters are very different. Yojimbo's a lot more stoic. I mean, most of the stuff you see with him is him scratching like this a lot, and you see him thinking. The villains feel more dangerous. I mean, Sergio Leone, one is a great director, but he liked villains who are a bit over the top. He liked theatricality, which with something like Volante as a villain, it helped a lot, but he could still be menacing. But sometimes, I think sometimes they were a bit too theatrical to get the menace across. Didn't mean they weren't great, they were great. It was just a different tone though. This Yojimbo, they're a bit more toned down. They feel more, even the lesser villains feel a bit more dangerous, as if they were going against someone else other than Yojimbo, they would be a real force. Against Yojimbo, he's better than them, but they're still more threatening. There's a feeling of danger, there's a feeling of oppression. You can tell why this town is so oppressed. In Fistful of Dollars, I like Fistful of Dollars, but I prefer for a few dollars more and Good, Bad and Ugly, because they have their own stories and the stories match the mood a lot more. And in Fistful of Dollars, I never felt, yeah, the tale of the town, but you never felt like you understood how they managed to do it. In this film, you sense of it was like 2 clans of power that built up, and neither side's managed to destroy the other. It's become this oppressive force. And it's just a threat, it's just there's something there, there's just the tone, the way things are shot, the black and white, it makes it feel like the whole place is toxic, it's much more cynical. I mean, it's genuinely cynical. And the humanity is etched out very carefully. It's not like a film where anyone's sentimental. It's like, even if Yojimbo does something good, he doesn't want like lots of thanks or anything. He's very stoic about it. He did it, but he's not going to be, you know, he's not a warm and fuzzy character. So Yojimbo is brilliant. I'm not going to go that much about it because I've got quite a few films to cover, but it's one you have to see. If you love Fistful of Dollars, this is a better version of it, because this is the original and it's just better. There's something more intriguing about it. It's a more intriguing central character, because I don't think Clint Eastwood really got into the character Man with No Name till A Few Dollars More when he was against Lee Van Cleef, and he was working against other people that he could actually play with. In the Fistful of Dollars, he's stoic, but he's not as interesting as he became. In this one, he's much more, the characters are much more interesting. The sequel, I actually like the sequel better, Sanjuro. Most people prefer Yojimbo more than Sanjuro. And Yojimbo's a better movie actually, but Sanjuro is great, and I actually like it better because it places Yojimbo with, or the lead character, Sanjuro, with all these like incompetent samurai who are trying to right a great wrong, and they're oppressed by these awful villains, these terrible people, and Sanjuro has to protect them, but they're awful. And he has to deal with people who are not up to his standards, and he has to be patient. And in some ways, there's lesser instances you can point out as, that's a great moment, that's a great moment, that's a great moment. But a lot of subtle movements of just him scratching himself as he tries to work out how to deal with these idiots who are trying their best, but they're just not up to the task. They're like kids who just, they're told you got to do this job, but it's not them, and he has to deal with them and try and get them ready for what's coming, and he has to deal with that. And you just see his character, it's still very subtle, but it's just more complicated. You see his character in the world a bit more, in a world which was a bit greyer than it was in the first one. And at least a great conclusion with him versus the main villain, that obviously was a big influence on the Good, the Bad and Ugly finale, where everything's set up. You see them watching as they're waiting to do the clash, and they clash over in 2 seconds. But this is even better than the Good, Bad and Ugly ending, because this one is just you're waiting and waiting and waiting. You get more and more intense, waiting and waiting and waiting, and it happens. I mean, the only thing that's really as good as this is from Once Upon a Time in the West, where it's Fonda versus Bronson. You get that same feeling of watching before the violence happens. That's when Leone got up to the level of Sanjuro. But I'm not going to say much more about Sanjuro because it's one of those films you have to watch and discover all the little moments, some of the little moments, which I like as a viewer. So that's why I probably like this one better. But I don't remember it as well because this was the first two I watched in the collection, because it's about an atmosphere more than a plot in Sanjuro. But Sanjuro's beautiful, it's a really lovely film. Okay, now on to Seven Samurai. Seven Samurai is the epic of this collection. It's very long, it's 3.5 hours or something. But it doesn't feel 3.5 hours long, it feels very pacey, to the point. It's been remade in Magnificent Seven. I think Yojimbo did a better remake, to be honest. Magnificent Seven isn't that great, and the recent version is bloody awful. But this one's brilliant because it takes its time, it sets it up. You set up all the characters, you set up the problem, the village, where the bandits come to steal their farmers' food. You set up them going to get the samurai to come and protect them. So they set the plot up, but what Kurosawa is really good at is he sets the plot up, and then you see characters reacting to the situation. So he's very clear, this is a setup, we're going to be patiently through this setup, and then you can see how everyone reacts to it, and you get the characters through that. But that sounds simple, but it's done so badly in most films. Most films you don't really get the sense of the intrigue of this person acts this way, this person acts this way, this person acts badly one moment, and then it takes a bit of time when they evolve. Kurosawa's great at that, and that's what this film's about, people slowly evolving, people slowly revealing themselves, what their front is and what they really are. And it just delivers moments. I mean, everyone's talked about the characters, they've been talking about the characters, like Mifune as the show-off, the leader, the various characters, the one that's good with the knife. All that's great because everyone's set up so well, or the farmer who wants to be a samurai, or the guy who's really intrigued by the farmer who wants to be part of that world. But the thing is, I was going to talk about is the atmosphere. The atmosphere, again, just like Yojimbo, it's just quietly oppressive. It's not as oppressive as Yojimbo is, but there's this sense of doom coming down. You don't really see the bandits as much as feel their presence until it's much later. But you see what needs protected in the farm. You get a presence of what's good and bad about the farmers. So you set it up so you actually care about what's going on in the situation. So by the time the action comes, you're ready because the setup's been done so well that you've lived with these people for a long time, like a good hour and a half before you really get to the meat of the action. And during that time, Kurosawa set up the geography so well in simple ways, like just saying this here, this is there, and then slowly shows through sequences evolving. So by the time you get to the action, the confrontation, you know where everything is, you know what the stakes are, and everything has impact. The whole thing has impact, and what's lost a lot now is the impact of action, which you don't get much now because it's just so fast. But this one, everything takes its time, so you get a sense of the importance of what's going on, the importance of what's happened, what it means to people. I mean, one of the criticisms of Kurosawa with David Thompson, who's a really good critic, is it's just a lot of fighting, a lot of tournament fighting. But to me, that's what he's really good at. He's wonderful at. I think the complaint was, it's like if any American director was so obsessed with that kind of thing, there'll be questions asked. But I think Kurosawa is the tactics of all that is like, because that's the world they live in, and that's the world that humanity's come from, and there's still those instincts within us. So it's revealing of what we are, what we want to be. I mean, I don't want to overstate Kurosawa. I like Ozu better than Kurosawa, but Kurosawa, as you get older, I found he's more interesting than I thought when I was younger. When I was younger, I thought I didn't get why he was so revered. But now, the more I watch the films again, you can see a lot more subtle details. And Seven Samurai is just a joy to watch. It's just the way it's set up. The mechanisms are there, but they inform the character, so you never feel you're being told exposition. You always feel you're getting character work, and exposition slowly sliding in, so you understand everything. But he's not making that point of that's what we're doing. We're doing that to help you get the story, but this is what you should be focused on. That reaction there is what you're focusing on. Watching how Mifune acts to certain things, how the leader acts to certain things, how the farmers act to certain things. That's what's important, so it leads to the ending. And leads to final conversations. It leads to when some of the samurai start to die, it has an impact. When farmers are affected by something, it has an impact. And it creates a sense of these bandits are a presence, these bandits are a threat. Which the remakes never get. The remakes are just villains. And that's not right. They have to be a threat. They have to. So there's some stakes to all of this. So that's Seven Samurai. Now Hidden Fortress. Hidden Fortress is my least favourite of these films, but it's still wonderful. The problem with why it's my least favourite is because the two central characters, the two beggars who end up on this journey with these more important characters who have a great task ahead of them. They have to try and save a kingdom. The smaller characters are really annoying. They're meant to be annoying. I mean, that's the idea. They're meant to be annoying, but they're like 10% too annoyed for me. I was like, I get the idea, but you feel like you've cut back slightly in a few things and you've got the point better. But instead of you're getting bashed over the head a little bit with how annoying they are and how selfish they are, when they've already made the point, but it's going on and on and on. It's like someone's telling a joke and repeating the joke. And that's the big flaw of the film. It's like it's hard to watch, so you're just waiting for the really cool moments of the character stuff of Mifune as the general trying to protect this princess who's trying to get from one part of the land to the other. And Mifune is realising these two beggars, even though they're idiots and they're selfish and they're greedy, have ideas that will get them around a situation that he would never have thought of. So he keeps them keeps them with him. Even though they're a liability and they're so greedy and they cause so much hassle, they end up causing so much trouble for them, end up always ruining the whole thing. But everyone gets the job done. It's a wonderful film. The characters are great. It's just those two characters, they're just overdone so slightly. But there's some amazing sequences, like when Mifune versus the other general when he's having a duel with him, because he runs into their camp and the whole army's ready after him. So it's a big fight with the general, which pays off later on when the general switches sides to be with Mifune. And there's some great sequences where they've been hunted down as things are getting desperate and they're getting hunted down by the half the army through the countryside as they're almost at the border to safety. Amazing sequences. They're just so well done. All the little details, all the characters, all the cynicism of all the bureaucracy that they face again and again as they try and navigate this corrupt world. Now, what's great about the film is it shows this world is corrupt. It's very difficult to do the right thing. People are out for themselves. The generals don't care about the small soldiers. The people don't care about the people. The rich don't care about the poor. Everyone's just trying to survive, and they have to try and go through all this. And by going through the countryside and dealing with people, the princess realises what her fate is, that she has to actually try and help these people. So it's a lot of wonderful stuff. It's a fable, but it's done so well and with such a realism of all the little details that it feels a real story rather than just some fable. You see the characters slowly change. Even though they're still types, they're types of detail that actually build up to a person. So by the end, when they're getting chased, you're really with them. It's just that these two characters, just lose 10% of them and it would have been perfect. It's so annoying though, but what can you do? Directors do that sometimes. They don't realise they've got a winning formula. They don't need to go too far, but they do it anyway. Okay, final one of this box set is my favourite of the box set. It's my favourite Kurosawa film for years. Just Throne of Blood, which is the Kurosawa Does Macbeth. It's a beautiful film. It's a wonderful. Black and white again. All his early films are black and white, and this one there's lots of fog, there's a lot of mood, and the Macbeth thing becomes a sense of, because they're not using the language, they're using story, but then there's a sense of doom always. There's always fog over the landscape. There's a sense of in the early parts you're setting up the again he's setting up the world where you see like the ruling class hanging over the lower class and over the soldiers, so only few people can rise, and the people who have risen have betrayed their friends to rise so high. So it's not a world where betrayal is an anomaly or anything. This has happened a lot. The guy who gets killed rose because he killed his king, or his lord. So it's a fact of life that people will rise up by murder. So when you first meet the Macbeth character played by Macbeth, he's a noble guy who's not really thinking that kind of stuff. He's more about just getting on with the job. And then when he's given the spur of you could be king, you see it work on him. Is it supernatural forcing him forward, or is it just gives him the little edge and it's ready in his soul, so it slowly develops and becomes a sickness. It never tell you it's supernatural or it's psychological. It's always left ambiguous of what it is. You see him slowly starting to plot, and because the board's so paranoid, he wonders, because his friend was there when he was told what would happen in the future. He's worried his friend would have told the Lord what they'd seen. So even if he's thinking maybe I shouldn't do this, he gets paranoid about, but I could be told on, they'll come and kill me anyway. So everything propels him. And what's great about the film is it's a set piece of like 6 sequences where you have the setup, you have the dialogue scene showing, the long dialogue scene showing the paranoia slowly seep into them, and then the resolution, then you go on to the next, then you have a little jump of time to the next bit, and then the next bit, and slowly but surely you're seeing the doom of this once good person. You're seeing the doom of his wife, and you see how he's propelled forward, and you can see the mood of the supernatural that's propelled him, that's malicious. It wants to see people fail, and it's the one film that gets the thing right about the he will not die until the forest comes to the castle. And because there's so much fog, the forest just seems to float towards the castle. It's an amazing sequence. and the whole supernatural thing is just wonderful, and the whole it's it's just done just right, so it's not silly. It's just there's a rational explanation for everything, but what you see is feels irrational, and you see how everything acts on him, how he's propelled to his own doom, and how he starts to realise he's doomed himself. And so the second half, which is always a weaker half of Macbeth, when he realises he's doomed, he's going mad. This works a lot better in this one because the supernatural and psychology has been worked out very carefully. So even if he's going a bit mad, they don't stay on it for so long that it becomes annoying. It becomes enough so you understand what's going on, and then they let silence and they let like the spare sets of a man small in the room with these other small men do a lot of the storytelling for you. You realise he's just a little cog in the machine. Even though he's forced himself upon the machine, he's still damned by the world he's in and his own actions. So it really works. It's still probably my favourite Kurosawa film. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. So I mean, if there's any film in this set to see, is Throne of Blood. Throne of Blood is amazing, and it's probably one of the shortest films in this set as well. But it really gets to the point in a way a lot of films don't. This is when Kurosawa was really spare and really getting to the point pretty quickly. He went a bit more longer later on in his career, went the way a lot of directors do, but this is when he was at his clearest. Okay, now we have Rashomon. Rashomon is the next film. This was his first big hit. This was the film that put him onto the international stage. It involves a samurai, but it doesn't. It's like Mifune, one of his early roles. It involves him as a bandit, and he runs into a samurai and his wife. He tricks a samurai, and this samurai ends up dead, and the bandit and the wife are caught, and they tell different stories about what happened. And then there's a woodcutter who saw the events, and he tells what he saw as well. And none of the four stories match up, because you also get a medium telling it from the point of view of the samurai. So you see the idea of everyone sees the events in their own way, and even and a lot of them are lying to save face, and you never quite work out what actually happened. And even when the guy who wasn't really involved, the woodcutter, tells his story, some people don't believe him because it's much more silly and human than anyone would like that story to actually be. So it's a story about different perspectives. It's a very good film. I mean, it's really well paced. Each time you think, okay, where's it going to go now? Because it's revealed a lot early, and where else going to go? Then you see another twist on what's going on, and the whole idea of there's a story that people tell in the tales, and a priest who'd listened to them, he's getting burnt out by humanity, but how awful humanity can be. And then the woodcutter gives him hope by taking in his baby that's been abandoned. It's all a wonderful film. It's not one of my favourites though. I mean, it's one of those films I like in theory. I really enjoy watching, but it doesn't really. It doesn't hit me the way some of the other films hit me. I mean, it's like, I think the idea of perspective is brilliant, but I prefer Citizen Kane, which had a more emotional take on it, which was about the failure of one person's life. I think that for me had a more impact. This one, the characters are all very interesting, but I never had a through line. This is just my personal opinion, really. It's not. Some people would disagree. Some people prefer this to Citizen Kane because they probably like the various viewpoints. It's just what you like more than one or the other. It's just what kind of story you like better. And this one is brilliant, but it's just, for me, this one it doesn't really hit the way some of the other Kurosawa films hit. It's just there's something there that I'm not quite getting yet, but it does feel a bit obvious that you can work out early on that after the second story that you get a different perspective from the third story. And it's interesting seeing different perspectives and all that, and everyone always twists in interesting ways, but you get the gag early of what's going on. And I think there was something, I always think this one I always feel there's something missing. There's one little moment that could have been there that isn't there that I think could have brought everything together. Maybe it's the ending where it seems a bit more too hopeful for me. Maybe I don't know, but it's just there's something there that doesn't get me the way other films of Kurosawa get me. It's brilliant, but I just think it's a bit lower than some of the other ones. It's sort of like Seventh Seal with Bergman. I love Bergman's other films more than like Seventh Seal. That's a revered one, but in some ways I think it's more obvious than some of the other stuff that he was doing in other films that were more interesting. And I think the same here. I think when Kurosawa's less show off with the narrative and just doing the characters, you can get a lot more from them and get that idea of different perspective without telling you this is what it's about. Maybe that's the problem, I don't know, but it's just it's still great though. It's still really worth watching. It's pretty short, so never boring. But it's an early film though. There's potential to this one, I think, that Kurosawa got beyond. That how clever I am. Look at me, how clever I am. That's here. That's not in some of his other later films, where he's a bit more interested in the situation. He doesn't need to try and impose himself as much in obvious ways. Okay, so that's Rashomon. Still a great film, but it's like it's not troubled even. It's just different for me. It's just a strange one. Okay, this is the one I mispronounced at the beginning. Kagemusha. Kagemusha and Ran are great. Both start Kagemusha. Kagemusha is about a guy who is a beggar, a thief, who looks exactly like a king, who has spread out through the land and done great things and horrible things, and he's brought a lot of factions together under his rule, and the king gets injured and dies suddenly, and this thief has to take his place and act as if he's a king for 3 years. The king's will says for 3 years they must suggest he's alive, so that the enemies won't take advantage and tear apart everything he's built. So Kagemusha's idea was this thief who has to act like the king, and he slowly gets burned, slowly learns how to be the king, until it's discovered by one little simple mistake. He makes a simple human error that brings the whole thing down, because he starts to get too confident, because he gets through all the difficult parts well, and then he does one little thing that's wrong, a bit of hubris. It brings everything down. It makes it obvious the king has died years ago, but not long enough for them to establish their own rule. The son of the king, who's been passed over, is resentful and causes problems and ends up starting a war that should never have been fought, which they win but at great cost. And because of all that war and all those problems, everything collapses, everyone dies, and it's a tragedy. You know, it sounds very depressing, but it's terrific though. Just the details of this film is very terrific. I mean, it's a weird one in its strength, because it is straggling. It is about 15 minutes too long. It's 2 hours 40, and if you've done 15 minutes off it, there's a bit during the section where the son goes to war, and you see the cost of war, where I think Kurosawa let it run on a bit too long. So you got to the point, and there was like no one had the guts to tell him, you're overdoing this. And there's a couple of little other bits where it's like, you got to the point, but it goes on a bit longer. There's still great sequences. I mean, you see why I wanted to keep them in, because they're all great stuff. It's the hard to lose stuff that's really good. But that's this film, is an embarrassment of riches, in a sense that the stuff may have been good getting cut, but still great stuff. But I mean, the way the film's told, you see it's not like this happens instantly. You see the first third of the movie is with the original king, and you see the reality of was happening and how he's planning ahead. You see the reality of his foes, how dangerous they are, so you can see why everything's been done. You can see why he doesn't trust his son and pass them over, because his son's very rash and very ego-driven, while trying to look like a good son, and he's just a mess. So all these details add up. And by this point, Kurosawa was very good at knowing how to do the details, how to do the setup. So by the time you get to the guy becoming the the beggar, the thief becoming the king. It's wonderful to see how he has to navigate people who knew the original king. And you can see it's something different even though it looks exactly the same. And then how he manages to get their trust. And how that changes once they realise they've been fooled. And then we get to the end where it's a tragedy where everything falls apart. Everything's for naught because of this one mistake the beggar made. But mainly it was spurred on by what the son had done and the resentfulness there and how it couldn't be hidden anymore. And so it's a tragedy. But the joy of the film is all the details, because this is now Kurosawa in colour. And he's great with colour, all the different details, the contrast of colour, how they spotlight people, how it moves the story onwards, how it creates a world and creates the divisions within the world very simply. Because everyone's got their own colours to create their own lordship, their own divisions. But it's so clear. So it could be a comic book, but it's not, because you can see that's the idea of, that's how people differentiate themselves. How they show their own importance. So, beautifully done, the details and how it doesn't feel that long, even though there's a couple of bits that have been lost to make it feel just a bit tighter. The reason why I bring that up, like could have lost 15 minutes, is because I think the tragedy at the end could have been greater if they'd lost those few minutes. Because I think, when you get to the end, you're starting to feel the length a little, but not much, because the storytelling has been so good. It's just that one sequence there that went on too long, and it leads into the downfall. So, because you're in a sequence that went too long, you start a bit tired from that one sequence, and then there's so much more to come. It creates a bit of tiredness that means the last section doesn't have the impact it should have had because there was a bit of overindulgence. But that's a minor flaw in a great film. It's just terrific, and it's wonderful. The acting is great, the direction is great. It's one of those films I urge you to watch. For me, it's up there with Throne of Blood and Seven Samurai. Just the details, the wonderfulness of the characters, the situation's great. But as a straggly dog story, it's not the strongest drive in the world, but all the details are so good. And with somebody that is like Sanjuro in that way, where the details are so good that you don't care so much with the central storyline as much, but it gives you everything you need to know and everything you want from the story and from the interactions. That the straddles this story is actually a plus rather than a minus. But it's wonderful, it's wonderful. See it immediately. It's one of those see it immediately films. Finally with Ran. Ran's King Lear, basically, but instead of 3 daughters and 3 sons. That's what it is. It's wonderful. This is where Kurosawa has a story that's very simple. You know, the simple setup. The king gives away his land. The king is getting old. He feels he's done his bit. He gives his power over to his son, but still expects respect. And his son starts to get resentful because this guy's still alive and he can't really develop his own power. The second son is resentful of the oldest son because the second son feels like he was the most powerful person in the family. He should have been king because he'd earned it, and the other son just was king by birth, really, not by his achievements. And the first king is the eldest brother is a bit weak and can be easily led along by his wife. Then there's the youngest son who's the only one who's honest with his father. He gets banished, and you see the weight of that. And the father realises the youngest son was right, that he was right about everything. And slowly you can see them, these respectful sons becoming disrespectful to their father. Then pretty much letting everyone know that anyone who helps their father will be punished as the father leaves and goes on a journey around the lands to try and find some place to be. And then slowly they come after the father, and the middle son kills the eldest son to become king. Then he gets led along by the eldest son's wife, who seduces him, and the king goes mad. The Akira king goes mad, and the younger son now comes to try and help his father. Now that's basic King Lear stuff, but they're sons rather than daughters. but it's the details of work, the madness of the king, him coming across signs of his own sin over his of what he's caused to these people, what he's done. It's all told brilliantly. The colour schemes again are beautiful. The acting's terrific because you feel for the king, but you also, he's never that sympathetic because you know he was bad when he was younger. His sons, his behaviour of his sons are not, you know, are obvious representations of his own sin, his good parts and his bad parts, and how they express themselves, his weakness and his successes. One of my favourite characters is actually the villainess who seduces one son, then seduces the brother when he becomes king. And she basically turns the entire kingdom against each other. She's the person who's been plotting the whole time, and it's great because once you realise why she's doing it, and it's obvious why she's doing it, but once she reveals why she's done it, even before they kill her, it's like, yes, she won. She beat everybody. She destroyed them. She used her own egotism against them, forced them to fight each other, forced them to make bad decision after bad decision and kill each other. And it was hilarious because they really had it coming. So even though you felt sympathy for the king, you also felt sympathy for the villainess because she's really earned her place. It's so funny because the middle son, you know he's going to die. You see him in a situation where everyone's turning against him. They don't even film his own death. They just let him die off screen. It's like, he's not worth it. And you see the king sort of lose, trying to bring himself back to sanity. Then when he loses his youngest son, he dies. He can't take any more. He dies, and it's a tragedy. They treat it as a tragedy. It's given its respect, but it's also given respect to the other people whose lives were destroyed by his actions. So it's a beautiful film. It's again up there with the best of Kurosawa. It's really worth its reputation. I think it's viewed as the last great Kurosawa film. I haven't seen his later films after this, but this is beautiful. This is a beautiful film. I don't want to say much more about it because you really need to see and experience it. I mean, everyone knows a King Lear story anyway. So I'm not telling spoilers, just the way it's done though, the details, the characters against the landscape, some of the landscape is beautiful, but it's never beautiful just for the sake of being beautiful, it's beautiful to show the emotion of what's going on. You know, what's one thing about Kurosawa, he's great visually, but it's not about I'm great visually, it's the visuals are in service of the emotion to give you a poetic image, a poetic set of cuts to show you what's going on with the characters. It's not just there to show off, like what I can do, it's there for a reason. That's what goes through all his films. Even in films something like Rashomon, which I'm less keen on, it varies what's going on in different sequences and different flashbacks to give you the emotion of what's going on. So even though I feel that one there's a few bits of potential in there, the emotional kick of it is still brutal at times. But some of that Ran he really gets his teeth into, so by the end of it, some of the sequences are heartbreaking. But that's Kurosawa and Blu-ray for me. That's all the ones I've got on Blu-ray. I hope you enjoyed this. Yes, I've rambled on quite a bit, but sorry, that's the way it goes.